If you have a home and you're bragging about, oh, I get 6 months to a year out of my filter, that's not a good thing. All right. That's not a good, filters are designed to filter. You know, if you're getting 6 months to a year out of your filter and nothing's going in there except for the dog hair as he walks by and shakes his tail, that's not a good thing. You got to make sure that thing's filtering. Hey there, Michael Church with Crawl Space Ninja. I had the pleasure to sit down and talk to Alex Hamilton of Aprilaire, and he covers a lot of topics today. He goes into MERV rating, filtration, air sealing, talking about dehumidification as well as ductwork. Great information. I've also got a special offer for each of you. We're doing 20% off of dehumidifiers and all products on the supply.crawlspaceninja.com DIY store. I got links to that down below. There's a coupon in the description of this video that you can use for that. Also, we are really trying to hit 100,000 subscribers. We hope you'll subscribe to our channel, like this video. We put out new content every week. And if you need help with your attic, your basement, or your crawl space project, we do one-on-one consultations with myself or AJ. Link in the description. Let's hear what Alex has to say about MERV rating, filtration, and how to improve your indoor air quality. I've been in the indoor air quality business since 2005, I believe. And I've learned a lot. I mean, there's a lot that has to do with air quality. And what I always tell people is we as a society, we're so focused on food and water, and I get it. There's a huge push trying to get, the dyes and everything out of our food, and I'm all for it. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to be ingesting arsenic in my cookies. If we can keep arsenic out of my beef and cookies, I'm all for it. I've seen what arsenic can do. But one of the things that always bothers me is that we as a society seem to put more emphasis on food and water when I think air is probably just as important, if not more important. And this is a scenario I always like to talk about, and then I'll get into my question with you. Is, you can go 40 plus days without food. Okay. My pastor for the past 17 years has fasted more than 40 days without food. So I've personally seen it done. And then obviously the Bible talks about Jesus doing it. Moses did it. Pretty sure David did it. Right. So 40 plus, and I know there's people, oh, that's crazy, you'll die. No, you don't. You can go 40 plus days without food. Your body winds up eating itself. It eats its own tissue in order to survive. And trust me, I've got enough tissue for my body to survive 40 plus days without food if I had the discipline to do it. Right. But okay, so 40 plus days without food. Water, you can go 3 days usually, right? Again, back to fasting. There's some people that have fasted 3 days water. Now, a lot of us are so dehydrated that we couldn't go 3 days because we're already in a state of dehydration. But, scientifically, it's been proven that a human can go three days without water. But on average, humans can't go more than 2 minutes without air. Now, unless you've trained yourself as a free diver, there's always the exception. All right. I'm not a free diver. I'm not going to go down, 300 feet in the ocean and be without air for 10 minutes. There are some people that have done that, but most of us can't go more than 2 minutes without air. And that's what I always try to bring up is that emphasis on air quality, right? There needs to be more of that. And that's what brings me to my topic, which is filtration. What is the role of filtration? Why MERV ratings matter? So Aprilaire filters use different MERV ratings. Can you explain what that means and how homeowners can choose the right filter for their needs?
Sure. So the rating itself is more of like it's an industry standard type situation. So it's a particulate count rating. So what MERV actually stands for is minimum efficiency reporting value. The higher the number, the more filtration you're getting. So in a MERV 8, you're going to get the level 8 of filtration, which is essentially, if we look at it like your home filter, if you were to take your home filter out of your return and try to look through it, it's the gaps in between it. So the meshing of the filter itself. So the smaller those holes are, the higher the MERV rating in most cases. Now, thickness comes into play, pleated, not pleated, washable, not washable, carbon, non-carbon, those situations. Now, Aprilaire has been producing filters since the 50s, I believe. So that's something that we do in-house that is, start to finish. We have it all the way up to MERV 20 in some HVAC applications. Now, why we landed on the MERV 8 is a whole other conversation. Washability is huge. being able to maintenance this where it's not something where you're having to have another consumable is huge. But we got to consider where we're putting them. We're putting these units in a encapsulated space, which is a clean space for the most part. Once we get the humidity mitigated, that's wonderful, but we're constantly mitigating the particulates in the air. Now, we do offer, like I said earlier, the MERV 11 filter for those. So if you have, say, like a doctor's office, nursing home, you are doing a whole home application, you have children that, or you personally have allergies or anything like that, you can raise that MERV rating with an installable filter for that and go to a MERV 11. And all it's doing is decreasing the amount of particulates in the air. So to your point, you're right. We can't go more like 2 to 4 minutes of, if you're a diver without air. But when none of us think about when we take a breath, right? Usually when we start talking about breathing normally, we're not thinking about it. Well, when we look at our air conditioning system, everybody that has central heating air in their home should have a filter on their house. And if you're buying those and they're like the fiberglass style filter that you literally can see perfectly through or anything like that, you're maybe at best catching hair, dog dander, things of that nature. You're not catching any kind of VOCs or odors or anything like that in that filtration. So where we get into IAQ, you can add way more filtration to your home as far as like in the HVAC. You can add, all types of different filtration. But in the crawl space, a basement, anything like that, we're an additional item, right? If we're talking about dehumidifiers, we're extra filtration on top of what you already have. So when we do that, now a person could build a plenum or build anything like that and add a bigger filter, add whatever you want to it because they are ductable. So that's something that, a homeowner or an installer could do. But when we're talking about the living space, if we're actively filtrating the basement or crawl space, then we're taking out a lot of those particulates before stack effect takes effect and things come into the home. Now, the other portion of this that I would say is huge that a lot of people usually don't think about is CFM. So CFM infiltration is huge. We're not a high CFM unit. We're around, I want to say it's like 275 CFM in an E100, 100-pint unit. And what that means is that's the amount of air that we can pull into that unit, bring across those coils, and then expel back out into the space after it's been filtered and dehumidified. Now, your air conditioning system, in most cases, just to shoot from the hip, a 3-ton system on your home is going to be pulling roughly 1,200 CFM, which is a tremendous amount of air. Now, granted, we're going to have friction loss and things of that nature as it blows into the home and goes to your vents. But the suction at the return filter is going to get 1,200 CFM of suction through that filter. So that being said, if we're thinking about mitigating some of these particulates in the home, we have to think about stack effect. We have to think about pull through. So if we're already filtering in the crawl space or in the basement, that pull through is going to go through the cracks in your baseboard. It's going to go through the cracks in your hardwood floor, anything that's open, even if you can't see it, even in the, the negative space in your wall where it kind of sandwiches together. Anytime that 1,200 CFM kicks on, it's going to create a negative pressure from the basement or the crawl space into the home. So if we're already taking those particulates out, this is why I'm a proponent for full encapsulation, just simply because it's almost like a scene from Dexter. We're making everything in there perfectly clean, And then as we pull those particulates through, they're less. It's much less than it would be if we only had a vapor barrier and, we just let everything else go. And that's something that I believe that when homeowners see the picture of everything looking clean, we also need to consider the fact that the air is a lot cleaner as well.
Well, in this CFM that we're talking about, the cubic feet per minute, and I'm glad you said what MERV stands for because I was in the process of looking it up while you're saying. I always forget. The filtration only works as good as the air that passes through the ductwork or through the machine. So in other words, whenever they do a MERV test, they seal the filter in this unit and run it through without any bypass. But unfortunately, we as homeowners, when we put our cardboard frame filter, which is, a 20 by 20, which actually is cut down to usually a 19¾ by 19¾ or 19½ by 19½. You could have anywhere between 1/4 to a 1/2 inch gap from that framing to the filter.
That's
all
true.
Right. And all of that air bypasses that filter. So you go from a MERV 8 to a MERV whatever because you didn't seal it in properly. So one of the tips I always tell people is when you put that cardboard frame into that filter, get you some blue painter's tape and tape where the cardboard meets the metal frame. All right. So that way it
decreases the bypass because air will always take the path of least resistance, right?
Right.
So on the flip side of that, look at your ductwork. If you've got ductwork that's leaking behind the filter, then that HVAC unit is pulling from that leaking air without even filtering that air. So you got to make sure that you have as well of a closed system as possible whenever you're talking about these things. And again, back to the water scenario, how many of you would pay a plumber to put plumbing in your house and you were leaking, you know, at a gasket or a 1/4 inch, you were losing a 1/4 inch of the water, right? That'd be like the stupidest thing ever. But you let the HVAC guy install ductwork and doesn't tape the seams, you know? So, you know, you got to think about this kind of stuff, right? I mean, that's the kind of thing that drives me insane is they don't think about this kind of stuff.
Well, and I would challenge any of your viewers, even your contractors that are viewing this, to go around your house and look at the registers in your floor or in your ceiling or anything like that. And if you see a gap anywhere around that metal piece where the register would attach to it, if you see a gap, they're not sealed.
That's right. That's right. Pull the filter off and stick your head in the return and look at the drywall, because they probably used a wall inside of your house as the return. And, you know, you can see daylight under the drywall into the room where your kids are sleeping, where the return is located. You got to seal all that stuff up. I mean, that's or you're not filtering anything. If you have a home and you're bragging about, oh, I get 6 months to a year out of my filter, that's not a good thing. All right. That's not a good. Filters are designed to filter. You know, if you're getting 6 months to a year out of your filter and nothing's going in there except for the dog hair as he walks by and shakes his tail, that's not a good thing. You got to make sure that thing's filtering.
That's exactly right. Well, and that's the other thing too. Now, I don't want anybody to get super scared and think that, oh no, you know, our filtration's not good enough. We got to go buy the thickest filter we can find. Because I do want to say this: you can over filter your air conditioning system to the point where there's so much restriction of airflow that it's not going to pull particulates. It's going to burn the motor up on the fan. So please, nobody get super scared about that. But yes, better filtration is key.